last but not least, Ethan Winfield. Ethan, come on up.
It's a hazardous thing to get between a bunch of people and their dinner, so I'm going to try to move quickly. It's a little less hazardous to talk to a room full of hungry Republicans with what I'm about to say than a room full of Democrats, so I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to be here. I grew up in Weaverville, right down the road, so this is my country, and it feels like home being here. I want to tell y'all a few things about Ethan Winfield, for some of y'all who don't know me. First of all, I am a devout Christian. I'm not ashamed to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that comes number one for me. What that means for me is I'm pro-life. We've got to protect the sanctity of human life. Number two, it also means to me that marriage should be between one man and one woman. And we've got to protect that. And as one of the gentlemen said earlier, one of the most important things, probably the most important thing on the ballot this May 8th is that Defense of Marriage Act. We've got to come out and support that. Come out and vote. I don't care who you vote for this congressional race, but do please come out and vote for that amendment. Additionally, I'm a family man. I'm the third of 6 children. I grew up homeschooled here. And my wife and I, we've been married for about 4 years, but we're looking forward to having a bevy of our own children and hopefully homeschooling them and raising them up in the way they should go. I also believe, in terms of government, that the government should not get in the way of how parents raise their children. We've got to make sure that the family stays the central unit of our society. And I see that slipping away, and it deeply concerns me. Additionally, I'm a businessman. I went to college up at Brown University up in New England. It's a horribly liberal place, but I started a business up there to put myself through college, grew that up over a few years, and was able to sell that. After that, I went to go work as the advisor to the CEO of a major Fortune 500 company. Did that for the last 5 years or so, and really got to see through those experiences what it's like to be a businessman at both a small business, rolling up your sleeves and doing the work, and at a very large company. And I tell you, there's not much difference in terms of the onslaught that companies these days are going through from the government. So why am I running for Congress? Well, I'd ask you to put yourselves in my shoes. My wife and I are looking to have kids here in the next few years. And when I look out in the future and I think about what kind of childhood they're going to have, a few people have mentioned that we do this for our kids. Well, the Congressional Budget Office up in Washington released a study. They have this model that projects, based on current law, what the federal government's going to be looking like over the next few years, going out many, many years into the future. They say that this model they have, it breaks down, it blows up in 2037. They don't even know how the nation and the federal government can function at that point because it'll be so crushed by our debt. Well, in 2037, my kids are probably going to be graduating high school or graduating college. And I cannot bear the thought of my kids living through that. And I want to be able to look them in the eye and say, I did everything I could to put America on a better track for you. And that's why I'm running. I'm going to be putting out a comprehensive set of policy proposals, a 50-page policy document. It'll be on my website, ethanforcongress.com. And it's going to have all sorts of detail about what I would do if I'm elected. It kind of boils down to 3 things, though. The first thing is we've got to get this economy going again. And there's a lot that Washington has done to prevent that. And a big part of it is the regulations. We've got to dial back the regulations. Would you believe in 2010, the federal government created 80,000 pages of new laws? I mean, that's just outrageous. And most of those laws, of course, they affect us as individuals, but they really affect a lot of companies. And the burdens that they have to put up with to continue an operation. These days, small businesses pay over $10,000 per employee to comply with government regulations. How can you grow the economy and grow jobs when you've got to deal with this sort of thing. So we've got to dial that back. I've got altogether about 10 different proposals of things that we can do to get the economy going again in detail. And then long-term, to get the economy going again, I believe education is really just long-term economic policy. The way that we educate our children today dictates the sort of workforce that we're going to have 10 and 20 years from now. And we need to make sure that we really reform our education system to make sure that we're turning out the world's best workforce down the road. And I believe a central part of that means putting locals back in control of the education system. We can't have folks up in Washington telling people how to run their schools. It just doesn't work. We all know that. Secondly, the second big set of proposals is we've got to balance the budget. And it's a complicated thing. Everyone's talking about it. But listen to what people say. There's some people who will tell you, yeah, we got to balance the budget. And so I'm gonna do away with this $1 million project or this other thing that was $12 million. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Barack Obama's budget he just proposed was $1.3 trillion in deficit. We can't get there $1 million at a time. This takes fundamental reforms in order to balance this budget. And I believe that we've got to reform our entitlement programs to modernize them so that they are stabilized and that we can fulfill our promises to the people who depend on them. We've got to modernize our tax code so that it's pro-growth and will help create that economic growth I talked about, but also reduce the compliance burdens that many companies have to deal with and that all of us have to deal with. I mean, we're going into tax time here. When you submit your taxes here in a few weeks, do you have any idea if you did it right? Well, I usually don't because it's so dang complex. We've got to fix that. And then lastly, and most importantly, we've got to stand up and protect our Constitution from enemies foreign and domestic. And these days, sometimes I think that the biggest enemies of our Constitution are sitting up there in Washington, D.C. We've got to do something about that. We've got to make sure that the federal government trues back to the Constitution on everything that it does. Because right now, that government has gotten way over its skis and it's doing all sorts of things that are not in that Constitution. Additionally, we've got to make sure that we continue to protect the United States from foreign enemies. There are folks who are saying we need to slash defense spending. This sequestration thing that just happened because of the failure of the super committee is going to cut defense spending by about almost a quarter. And this is going to devastate our military, ladies and gentlemen, and we cannot do that. So we need to send up to Washington somebody who will fight for these things. People have mentioned, well, people go to Washington and they lose their resolve. How do you know that I'm not going to lose my resolve? Well, it's very simple. My life and the life of my children depends on making progress on these issues. I cannot afford to go up there and not keep fighting. My name is Ethan Winfield. I'm asking for your support. And if you honor me with your support and send me to Washington, I'm going to go up there and fight and fight and fight to turn this country around until all those other politicians up in Washington either come onto the right side and do the right thing for this country or get sent back home. So thank you very much and enjoy your dinner.
Thank you, Ethan. Thank you very much.